The following podcast is dedicated to Mark Costello, Jeff Parker, and Tony Monrero. Nights that we lost far too soon, but we will never forget. The Wannabeez.
I think Walt just sent me an email.
Beware I kill.
Yeah, this is gonna be the best thing ever.
Bumblebee Book Club.
I want to talk about John 3:16.
Oh, that's fucking dope. This is so weird and unsettling.
We need the ectoplasm.
A person of merit.
Was Knights of the Fifth Dimension.
Yeah, you're Johnny Appleseed of the Knights.
You know, if I'm a wannabe, so be it.
BlueJuiceComics.com.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Wannabeez. I'm your host, Justin Kyle. With me in the Beehive is Nick Gula.
Let's go!
And, of course, it's not a Wannabeez without our boy, John Van Hook.
Oh, thanks. Hey, everybody.
We have a very special episode, so I'm going to cut right to the chase. This is something that we've all been leading up to. We've talked about it. It's happening. We're doing the BBC, the Bumblebee Book Club. And the first book on the docket, boys, was Knights of the Fifth Dimension.
If we could get some horns in there or something.
So, did you guys do your homework?
Of course.
For once, yes. Yeah,
You did?
I actually did my homework for once on this entire podcast. We're 20-something episodes in, and I actually did something you guys asked me to do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You know me. I always do my homework.
You always show up, guy. Always. Joining us to talk about this book, we've got two very special guests. We got the writer of Knights of the Fifth Dimension, our boy Casey Van Heel.
Hello. I could feel that tickling on the back of my neck when there was two other people reading. Thank you all. Thank you.
So is there any relation between you guys, John Van Hook and Casey Van Heel? Is there like some van club that you guys are a part of?
He's my son.
John, we found it.
It's just, I'm so sorry. I went out for cigarettes and now I'm back. I brought a comic and cigarettes.
I wish you were my father because that would explain so much more than what's actually going on. But no, I think we actually have distant relatives and our neighbors back in Dutch. They were the Van Heels. We were the Van Hooks. It was this long feud.
Wow.
We really don't like to talk about it. Can we move on?
All right, fair enough. And last but not least, the artist of this fantastic book, Walt Flanagan.
Hello.
Hello, welcome, Walt.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
It was very nice of you guys to introduce me first because obviously, Walt is the best.
Well, I wanted to introduce you first
Right.
because I feel like the journey of Knights of the Fifth Dimension really starts with you, Casey.
Yes.
I correct me if I'm wrong, but you gave a copy of Civil 4 to somebody at a con that made it back to the stash.
Oh no,
and
I
Walt-
wasn't even that. I just sent it
Wow.
directly to Walt at the stash, and was like,
Fuck yeah.
"Dear Walt, here's something I made." No, honestly, it was that. It was having listened to Tell 'em Steve Dave, and then obviously that was the earlier parts of Comic Book Men.
Yeah.
And then, honestly, it was mostly just, I was like, well, he does all this cool stuff, and he runs a comic book store. I was like, I'm going to send it to him because he will be a nice barometer for, could you sell this? And then also, the feedback was appreciated, but that it honestly was just I'm gonna send it to someone I like and just get some feedback, some insight, just a little.
You shot your shot.
When you saw the book, Walt, what did you think when you saw the cover and you read it? What was your initial reaction to Civil 4?
I didn't realize this because I assumed that how I saw the book was I didn't realize that Casey had sent it in to the stash to see if we wanted to carry it. Mike Zapsik and Ming Chen, who were on Comic Men, they were just starting out doing a whole bunch of cons, and they would go to cons on the weekend and come back with a whole bunch of small press books, independent comic books, and I loved all that stuff. They would bring it back and they would throw it in the back of the store on the poker table. And every day when I went to lunch, I would grab somebody's creator-owned comic book and I would go bring it and read it at the pizza parlor. And I didn't realize, I really thought Civil 4 was a part, that's how I remembered it. I didn't realize, though, that you had sent it in, which is all possible. I mean, but for the life of me, I thought that it had come back from Mike and Ming, and it was in a pile of stuff that I had read.
No, but it was also because that's back when the Asbury Con was at the old convention, not the convention center, but
bowling alley, right, or something like that.
Yeah, it was just this old giant amphitheater, and they had all the heavies were down on where they have a doo-wop show or play basketball, and then they had people around the ring, around the outer upper belt where you could look out over on the ocean. We did that show. My wife and I did that show, and that's when I had sent that to you, and then I think it was also possible that Mike and Ming came there. Because they had another book called Palooka, which was a wrestling 60s wrestling superhero book. Because I remember Mike came back and went, "I saw this at the stash." Walt was reading it, and I was like, "Oh, fantastic!"
I guess it's true. Then they really do sell comics.
Yeah,
I took Civil 4 to the pizza parlor that I went to every day. I read it, and it made me do something I never did before or have done since. I reached out to I saw that there was an email at the back, and I just wrote, I really dug your stuff. I love the way you write bombastic, over-the-top characters. It has, it almost speaks to me like, I don't know, just the exact way that I like to hear, the hyperbole of ridiculous, over the top, confident superhero characters talk, and I really dug it a lot, and that's why I reached out to Casey and told him that. I haven't done that before or since, though, to any book I've ever read, though.
You did say that in the email, because I was like, wait, what? I got the email and I walked out of the room and was like, honey, I think Walt just sent me an email. I think I got an email from Walt, and you said the same thing. You're like, I don't do this, but I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I was really impressed with it.
Because I had asked if you just hey, could I use a pull quote? And you were super nice, and that's what you said. You're like, I really dug the bombastic, the scope of it, and I was like, this is awesome, fantastic.
Not to jump ahead at all, but I feel like that so much mirrors the relationship between the main characters within the book that we're discussing, which I find absolutely heartwarming about your own relationship. Obviously, Walt's not a bitter old man, but he's not close to death, and he's not dying anytime soon. He's very much still here, and you guys can still talk about it. But yeah, I love the communication.
I haven't yet tried to dose him with lotion, but
yes,
we have. It's possible.
Stay away.
I bring that all up Casey, I wanted to show you this. After I read Knights, I went and I got all the issues of Civil 4, dude.
Oh, yes, you got yes.
Absolutely love it. If anyone listening, go check it out. Is this still available to buy anywhere?
Yeah, it's Person of Merit Comics, which is just my website. You can get it. I've done color versions, but the black and white versions, the versions I sent to Walt, and then the ones you have were just my buddy Maxime and I in art school would we're gonna do this weird comic about Abe Lincoln surviving the assassination attempt at Ford's Theater and creating his superhero team. but we wanted it to have like that feel, like it could have been something you could have found from back then. So it has that like weird paper.
I love it.
Patina.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yep. It's one of those like when I first got it, I showed my partner and I'm like, this is why I love physical comics. Like the paper, everything about this feels like it's like from a different time. Like the art is beautiful. The writing, like you said, is like bombastic and crazy. You brought up your friend Maxime, who also worked on Knights of the Fifth Dimension. So you guys met like earlier in life, like at art school or something. What's the story between that?
We were those two guys that sat in the back of the class. Like we're in art school, so we're already at the back of the class of life, and then we're at the back of the class of the back of the class. And it started out as there was this guy that we went to school with who would always like, and this is not a slight against him, but he was always like, "Cool, how can I like make this and like make money out of this?" And we were in animation class, and he was like, "Okay, cool. I'm in 3D. We're in 3D animation. How can I turn this into, like a thing?" And we're just like, he was always over the top, and he had this thing where he was like, "I want to do mechs, but it's going to be in the Civil War and this." And we were just like, "Ugh, come on, dude." And then so we started being like, "Well, Harriet Tubman has a tub on a chain, and then Abe Lincoln's head's in a jar, and then." You know, like we were just like sliding sketchbooks back and forth and like doing drawings of like, and then Ulysses S. Grant has two big guns with like bayonets on the end, and we just kind of
why did you want to become an artist? Because you didn't want to make any money.
No, exactly. Like, how could we make something that no one will understand? They're like, it's a comic book about the Civil War, but also superheroes. But yeah, that was just it. And then it was like I moved to New York and was like doing comedy and writing, and I was just like I couldn't let the idea go. And I was like, I had always loved comics. I'm still reading comics, and I was like, "Hey, dude, I haven't talked to you in a while. Do you want to like try and make a comic?" And you know that was 20 years ago, and we're still friends, and we still make comics.
Yeah, I mean, obviously. Because like when I saw Maxime on the credits for Knights of the Fifth Dimension, I was like, oh, who's this guy? And then when I bought Civil 4, I'm like, holy shit, it's like it's the same dude. Like, well, that's these guys must be friends. Like
Walt
that's crazy.
And I started working on Knights. We had that like we were talking about trying to get the different feel and vibe, and then Wayne, the colorist who had worked on Zoic Man.
Yeah.
Who Walt had said, like, let's have, like, the real world be this, like, painted, like, airbrushed reality. And then Walt was doing this, like, awesome Kirby-inspired stuff. And I was like,
oh, yeah.
I got a guy who is so nerdy about, like, inking. Like, he gets his brushes from Europe, and it's, like, knows, like, the horse hairs on it. And so I was like, I think I got a guy who can help us make this thing. So it just started this like sort of like ping pong back and forth. We just sort of like talked about stuff we liked and like ideas we had. And if I'm not mistaken, in that episode of Comic Book Men, Walt, the Damned Yankee, you had that already sort of sketched out.
Oh my God, you're so right.
I don't remember this. So yeah, jog my memory.
Because oh my God, you're so
like,
right.
I think it's like the first season of Comic Book Men or
yeah.
Like someone comes in and then you're just like, hey, take a look at my sketchbook, which was so funny because we were already working and we had already like you were like, hey, I got a couple ideas I had cooking. And I was like, oh yeah, hell yeah, we could go with Damn Yankee.
Yes, yeah.
And then you showed it on the show, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, I've always liked that name, and I remember, I mean, because it just screams, you know, like a patriotic, satanic character. You know, yeah. I mean, to me, I thought there could be no more perfect name than the Damned Yankee.
USA, USA, USA.
I think the Damn Yankees is such a dated reference, though. I don't know if anybody realizes it was a real thing in the 30s or 40s.
Oh no, it's I think it carries.
Okay,
I got it.
Wasn't it like a super group in the 80s of like
Oh,
What
it's
rock
Ted
singers?
Nugent?
Ted
No,
Nugent?
no. That was it?
It was the damned Yankees. It was plural.
Oh, wow, you're right. I
But
think,
wasn't it like just a bunch of
yeah.
just blousy? Like all I remember is like desert shots and it's orange and there's wind and long hair. And these guys kind of aren't like attractive, but you're like, okay, I buy it, I guess.
I forgot about them. Yeah, forgotten the history, that super group, the damn Yankees, yeah.
While we're on it, I just wanted to cover that this is easily my favorite of the four nights, no matter the iteration either. I found whatever the backstory, whatever the multiverse, whatever version of the night this might have come from, the damn Yankee absolutely stood out every time. And I think it's largely in just the design, whatever the design of the mask, the way it's rippled at the bottom or teeth at the bottom and the sixes across the top. It's like you said, just it gives that satanic feel that pushes through, and then the patrioticness behind it, because obviously red is very satanic, but then the white and blue makes everything pop so well. And then the way you make it transcend throughout the generations with the Vietnam fit and the revolutionary fit, and it's absolutely incredible.
No, that one was
Thank
a
you.
fun
So
one because
cool.
like Walt just sent it across and it was like, yeah, hell yeah, you can go with that. Like, I'm such a nerd. Like, I love Captain America, so I was just like, yep, that one's the first one we're diving into.
I think my favorite, and I'm gonna totally butcher this name, Professor Odious Amorphos. Is that like the guy, like the ghostly looking guy?
Well, that one is fun too because it wasn't I as I recall, is that a reference to like a Black Sabbath?
No, the Spiral Architect was Black Sabbath. Yeah, Odious. I don't remember. I mean, when I think of Odious, I kind of thought maybe I don't remember, but wasn't there a dude in Guar named Odious?
Oh, that could have been what it was. I mean, like I love alliteration, so I'm all for it. Like, Odious Amorphous is just a guy who, like, that's what I loved about the design of that character is the like pleated slacks and the nice shoes. Oh, with the the ghost cloak over it, like that one. As soon as I saw it,
Yeah.
I was like, I can go with this.
I want to know is how does he fly? What's the mechanics on that character's flight?
ghost.
Is it because he's a
Yeah, he's a spiritual
You
defender.
ever seen a ghost that can't fly?
Walt never gave a lot of like, here's things I want and need from it. But that one I remember in particular because he had this like killer sketch and it was just a torso with ectoplasm and he was like, we need the ectoplasm. And I was like, we can do it. We got it. Let's do it. Let's roll.
I believe his original name was Dr. Ectoplasm, which I want to say I would have been totally fine with if he stuck with Odious Morpheus is cool. But Dr. Ectoplasm, I would have been fine with it.
There's this old 1920s picture of ectoplasm before it was popular in Ghostbusters. There's these photos online of I guess they're fake photos, but of this woman with ectoplasm coming out of her nose that's kind of forming into something solid. And I think that's where the idea came up where we're like, well, if he had no head, no arms, and no legs, and just be ectoplasm comes out of those parts where those things are cut off, they would kind of look like phantom-like limbs. There's no, in my opinion, there was no real like handbook of like, well, these characters, these are their powers and these are their things they can do. It was just like whatever we needed to do. If we're on the fly now, they can fly.
I mean, that goes back to what Justin was asking is like how it came about. And it kind of was like that idea of like we both just kind of went into our toy box and like pulled out things we liked and things we knew. We're like, how can we make this work? And one of the things is when Walt was like, hey, do you want to do this? I was like, hell yeah, of course I want to do this. Like, I write comics. I want to write comics. I'll write comics all day. You had sent me, what was it? It's what, Bulletproof Coffin, I think.
Yeah, an image book. Yeah.
Which is amazing. Like, the art's amazing. It's very similar in tone because Walt was like, I want to kind of do something like this. And it does that same sort of like tone switch from sort of like classic 50s, 60s comics to this like
Mm-hmm.
dystopian reality, and you have these characters kind of going back and forth. And I had heard of the comic and I hadn't read it until Walt had asked me. It was like, hey, check this out. This is kind of like the vibe I'm going for. But like, I'm like a fucking 80s kid. Like, I love Beastmaster and Masters of the Universe, but like, man, oh man, does that like get draining? Like Beastmaster 2, where he falls into like a magic well, and then he's in like 80s Los Angeles. Or like Masters of the Universe, you're like, it's fucking Dolph Lundgren as He-Man. And you're like, why is he on the Sunset Strip? Like, what the fuck is going on? So that was like the one thing I wanted to avoid, was that sort of like, oh, here we go, we're in the real world.
I think you found the balance, because it was like the whole idea of the sentient comic book playing a part in the real world, and Wayne Jansen's art, like the colors, really made that work. Especially that double page layout of Kurt like falling, like crashing into that dimension. You know what I mean? Like that whole transition works so well. It didn't feel like Dolph Lundgren is on the Sunset Strip now. All of a sudden, it was just like he's being blasted into a fucking different dimension, and it's like awesome.
That was one of my favorite. Was when the heads and the kind of like he was in the face melting, and that was like
so cool.
two things pages before it, but that visual with the brains and stuff, and him like just face melting, whatever, and you had that cerebral cortex of whatever you want to call it behind it. That visual is just so awesome to me.
It feels less like going through a portal and more like a rematerialization, the way it was depicted.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Well, there's a lot of pages in that book, and almost all of them were extremely fun to draw, because you're doing things like that. Like there's not a lot of talking heads. There's a lot more of just like wacky, wild, surreal, psychedelic,
Kirby-esque art.
Yeah, so that's why it made the books like so fun to do, because every page was like, for me personally, it's hard for me to get up to do talking head pages but that are needed in some stories, where you got to have people going just talking back and forth, setting up stories and stuff. I've worked on a few books like that, and those are challenging. But it's never challenging to be like, oh, we need to put a Merlin in a futuristic casket that's on the base of a tank, and it all has to look like inspired by Kirby's eye for what the future would look like. That's fun. It's challenging, and that's why it was an absolute joy to draw it, because it was always something interesting to draw.
Yeah, that back and forth of just like coming up, because the story was like a man literally entering fiction, which is like we were just talking about. Like, I fell into a magic well, and now I'm in Pinocchio, but I'm not. I'm Will Ferrell. Like, what am I doing here?
Those transitions were really awesome. I thought the transition between reality and that dimension was just seamless. It felt real.
No, and that was the most fun. It's just like, okay, we're gonna show that transition, and like Walt said, because we would just fire back and forth, and like that's what took so long. It's because we were both trying to like paint around what we wanted, and we didn't know. So you rush headlong into the first issue, and you have all this stuff, and it's like the last couple pages of that first issue, like Walt redrew like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, there was a couple of times where we were like in the middle of it, like, hey, you know what? What about this? Would this be cool if we went this way instead of the way we were going? And that did cause some redraws.
The best part about collaborating with Walt is he wasn't just like, I'm one and done. Like, I did it already. Like, you figure it out, we'll do it later. Like, it was just that push and pull of like, I don't think it's there yet.
Did the stories come before the artwork, or did the artwork though, or was it both? Like, you would send like something that you would want, and then like, oh, we could do that. How would you set that up between the drawings and the plot of the story?
I think there was a lot of just to get the ball rolling. There was a lot of the back and forth. So like I'd write a little bit, and then Walt would draw some stuff, and then I would write some more stuff, and he'd send it back, and then vice versa. But then once we figured it out, because like the artwork is so detailed, like I was able to then go and do like issue 2, issue 3, and start doing like macro sort of arc stuff, and then come back, and then it would sort of reinform itself. But that initial, like that first issue was a really tough nut to crack. But once we got it, we were like, we got it. Like, we know where we're going.
Yeah. I mean, initially it was going to be about it was a big murder scene, and there was like the clues at the scene of the crime where all the bodies are on the. Remember this? And there was a comic book, and a detective found the comic book, and the detective was going. It was much more a factor in the story.
And then we ended up like using it later, but yeah.
But by chapters 3 and 4, issues 3 and 4, Casey had turned in full scripts, and so I was just working off those full scripts. And at that point, we knew at least where the finish line was. There was times where we could be like, hey, what about if what if we do this right here? Just it would be visually more cooler or something. But those were just small tweaks, though. But otherwise, they were like full scripts by that point.
So speaking of like the idea of like a sentient comic book, when I first read this, I was like, that's such a cool idea. At that point, I was working on like trying to figure out my own like little short story. And the idea was, it was called Mail Order Heroes. And the idea was, these kids ordered like the X-ray specs and like all like the toys and gadgets that you find in like the comic book ads. They ordered it, and then when they came in, they actually worked because they found some sort of magical comic book, and that's like how they got their powers. Like they wanted like to see through a wall, they would have to put on the X-ray specs. If they wanted to like deploy an army, they would have like a pocket full of 100 little army men that would, what I mean, go fight their thing. So like I was like trying to like, how is this gonna work? And then I read Knights of the Fifth Dimension, like, that works so fucking well. That's awesome. It was so fun to read it. Speaking
about like the commercials and stuff like that. That Mostess cakes first thing that was just amazing. Yeah, I opened that up. I was like, yeah, this is gonna be the best thing ever.
Well, and that's just a great example of like we were just plugging along, still doing it, and then. Obviously, we're all fucking comic nerds. We're all nerds for comics. Like, Walt just was like, he just shot me off an email and was like, I feel like we need one of those ads. And I was like, I got you, buddy, because I've already written a couple for other stuff I've done. I love it.
Yeah, I adore the Bronze Age. I know that the Silver Age and the Golden Age, but for me, growing up, it was the Bronze Age. So anything that I could grab and nightify turn it into somehow and turn it into a Knights related like Marvel or DC stuff. That's where I was the most like giddy about, because I was just like, I don't think there's like maybe 3 or 4 people that may know what this reference is, but I don't care. I love it. And it would be just weird stuff that's like, there's so many things like in the background, like little nuggets and Easter eggs. There's countless ones of them, and almost all of them are things that I remembered fondly from my childhood.
That was the best part for me, like getting the art back and seeing like the detectives at the police station, and you get Columbo and Starsky and Hutch, and got everybody.
I noticed that.
Yeah. It's just like that's the stuff I love. Where that big spread where you do all of the Spiral Architects, and there's like the Liberace one, and just
that was fun.
It was such a
Santa Claus
treat, because like I just was like, hey, this is what happens, and then you get this like beautiful gift of like lovely madness. You're like, oh, what? Yes, I didn't write that because I wasn't like, Walt, we need 57 cameos.
The the hourglass with the stars in it. I have to ask, like, who? Well, you probably came up with that. What did that mean?
Well, I had two massive piles of beat up Jack Kirby comics. If I saw them at a flea market, coverless ones, I would buy them, and for this project I would read them over, look at them, and one time I was just like, what would be in an hourglass, but what would be a cosmic hourglass, and I was like, it feels like, wow, has anybody done stars? Somebody's had to done stars on an hourglass, I figured.
Yeah.
But I don't care. If someone's already done it already, I'm doing it now anyway.
Yeah.
I didn't look in Google to see if it had been done before. I was just like,
don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness.
yeah. And so I was like, that's just one of those things. I was just like, I would always sit there and go, and that guy's like a god. I am a piece of dirt under his boot. But so to try to say, I'm like, well, can I get in that guy's head? I can't. Nobody can. So I was like, just had to do the best I could of like, what's cosmic, what's huge, what is something small that can be that like everyday thing that can be kind of looked at through a cosmic sunglasses or eyeglasses, and just try to do the best I can to try and do something that like he did with absolute ease.
Yeah. Is that why you picked the moon? Kinda the moon with all the spiral architects. A lot of that had the moon imagery of like a cat's eye moon.
Oh, well, they all have, cosmic. When I think of cosmic things, I think of like the galaxy, planets, the moon.
For me, when I saw the moon, Nick, so like Vanta Black, right, is the ultimate darkness, and what lights the ultimate darkness for us, right? Like it's the moon. The moon provides us light. Like for me, I don't know if that's accurate, but that's how I interpreted it. I'm like, I don't know. Am I did I make it up? I don't know.
Walt sent those, he had the spiral architect design and sent it.
Great name.
It's cool.
Such a good reference.
The name was cool. It looked cool. So I was like, what do you do with that? But you're not wrong at all. That's exactly my thought process was like, it's the moon, it's night. The night can be evil, but you know what comes from the night? Your dreams. Like imagination, and that's like the seed of all, like that took so long to like crack it, because it seems like it's just a comic book about all these crazy superheroes, but like for me it took that moment to be like, no, it's about this artist and his mentor and their relationship, and like that's important, but they create comic books, and like some people that's trivial, and some people that's the biggest thing in the world. But it was just the idea of like, it's dreams, it's imagination. Like that's the fifth dimension is creativity, and you know, like, and so in like working with Walt, it was such a fun, like, I love collaboration. Like I love, as much as I like sitting in the dark and having total control and doing whatever I want, like I get such a jolt from like that's why I love comics, because you can send it. It's one of those things that you can write it and send it off, and then the artist sends you back thumbnails or art, and it just boom, 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 and it just gets those gears turning, just gets you going. And in other mediums, like if you're writing a book, you're writing alone. If you're making a movie, like that's massively collaborative. It's massively, and you don't get that reaction because you're like, well, you have to work with the cinematographer or the actors or the in this and that, and it's like, this is just like Walt said, like I wrote, he was like, we need something, and I was like, Merlin in a casket with fucking tank treads, and then bing bang bong doom, he sends it over, and I was like, that looks fucking awesome.
I want to talk about John 3:16 real quick. I think this character not only is just remarkable by design, but personally for me, I just have a really bad relationship with religion overall. So for a religious based character to come across and win my heart like this. It really does kind of, I don't know, it breaks me up from the inside, and I really appreciate that because he's so charming.
Well, I think only a robot could be free of hypocrisy.
Absolutely.
Right? So he would be the perfect person to spread religion because he would not have any hypocrisy in his circuits.
No,
And
and that's
he does it so well.
the most fun because Walt had that and was like, "It's a robot that's religious," and I was like, "That's fucking great!" Like it's great. It's great because you're like,
Say no more.
humans, we're so fallible, and this thing is just like, no, I see this abstract and it's mine.
He nailed
The
it.
Pope is kind of like taking the gold, and he's like, nah, dude, you're getting blasted in the face. 'cause-
Good old Gorgilla.
And do you guys the name John 3:16 though came from like the early 80s. Like I was a big football fan, and every friggin' game that I saw in the end zone there'd be somebody hanging a banner that said John 3:16. And an era before Google, I was like, what does that mean? Like I didn't go to church or anything, so I was like, why is that at every stadium? Like what? Like it was one of those mysteries for a long time, and then when I find out it was just a Bible verse, 'cause I was kind of like, oh, that's all it is. But it had to be very powerful that it was everywhere at every NFL stadium. No other sports did I see it, but at NFL stadiums in the '80s, you would see that John 3:16 banner with nothing else on it. Handmade
And
bed
the curly wig.
and I saw it everywhere.
It becomes that
Yeah.
it's the meme, like before memes, before the internet. You're like,
Yep.
he did it every time and bought those seats, and then
That's where like the collection plate money goes.
But there was a character in the 70s, I don't know if Casey remembers him, it was from John Byrne called Raj 3000 or Raj 2000. It was some Charlton comic, some obscure John Byrne character, and that's where I always liked that name. And then when we had a chance to create a robot character, it's like, yeah, boy, that just sounds like a robot name, right? John 3:16.
So did you ever look up that verse?
I did look it up. I don't remember. It's
I just looked at it.
It's a Bible verse. I don't remember what. I don't even remember what it was.
I could pull it right back up for you, but I thought it
Yeah.
was kind of interesting.
What
It
is
says,
it?
"So, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have eternal life." Which is kind of interesting because that robot probably won't die of old age. So, he is the begotten Son of God because he is carrying on that faithful mission that has failed humanity.
well, that's what one of my favorite panels is. Walt added it. I didn't write it, but Walt was.
Happy accident.
He wanted that in that flashback of John 3:16 to be playing the guitar for all those kids that he saved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was
Yes, I
like,
love
it's
that.
such a
He
good
just loves
beat.
the little
It's such a good
children.
beat. Like, because I'm like,
So good.
there's loose sever, and I have like the meat markets of like all this horror. And
That thing with John playing the guitar for the kids was in my youth. I remember going to there was a store front in my town when I first moved to the town where I still live in, and they had on Friday nights you could play ping pong and
that's how they get you. Well, that's how
you could
they
play
get you.
board games.
Youth group.
And Saturday you could do that, but on Sunday, when you went there, you just couldn't walk in and play games. You had to listen to some hippie playing Christian rock music to a bunch of kids, and you couldn't leave until the set was done.
Lock the door.
And I would always sit there and go, yeah, this is so weird and unsettling. As we sat there for 2 hours and straight as listening to some guy play gospel music on it, strumming his guitar, and I was just like, I always remembered that, and I was like, I want to throw that
40
in
minutes
there.
of that was him tuning the guitar. So you're like, only got 20 minutes of good Christian rock.
I love that like the metal robot is playing
Yeah,
an acoustic guitar too. Like it's just like
That was
so
all Walt.
funny.
He said it, and I was like, I fucking love it. It's such a good little note, like a good little just. Of course, this hard thing would be playing the softest. Have to like use all of its servos to sing "Kumbaya."
I think the only the night that we haven't really talked about yet is
Cree, which was
Yeah.
my favorite. My favorite has got to be
Kriega.
Cree. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember what it means, Casey?
No, but I remember you say because it's from Tarzan, right? Because you sent me, and I still have them. They're right on my shelf. Those great Usama Tarzan comics, and that was also part of writing it. I was like, it has that grit and thing because it's what the apes yell at Tarzan.
Yeah, it was ape language. It was ape language, and Tarzan and the Tarzan comics I read as a kid, he would speak Mangani, which was man's language, and then with the ape language, it was a totally different thing. And Kriegab meant beware, beware, and then he would say Kriegab Bundalo, beware, I kill.
Wow. Oh man,
that
is sick.
Yeah, that was badass. I was like, oh, that's fucking dope.
Yeah. Now I love this character even more now.
That's so cool.
Him eating the blood guy and getting the knowledge of the person that he's eating was brilliant. That was super brilliant.
So good.
I mean, obviously, we're just ripping off the millions of Tarzan clones like Khazar and Korak, but it was still fun, though.
All the knights sort of represent different parts of comics.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the only thing I think that was missing was a talking animal.
That was the most fun to write because I got to slip into that moment. Like Walt was saying, like Kriegab Bundalo is like
so cool. Now that I know that,
let's
so
lean into the fact that it's a ripoff. Because if this was a real comic book, people just do that. Like that's just what you do. That character is just a derivative of that character. Like, and then again, it goes into the larger thing about the story. It's just it's a comic book about stories, about telling stories, and so it's like, yeah, why not? Like, let's do it. Yeah, that's what someone would have made in the 60s and 70s if they were alive back then, which was so fun because I love that sort of ping-ponging and like, oh, so Kriegab Bundalo lives in the jungle? Like, let's create the Kaiser, like, this invader character that is just like takes over all of Africa.
With the pollution.
Yeah.
Which is so fun because it's just, you just get
So
to
cool.
play and you get to go like, what's the opposite of this?
Yeah, and before...
Speaking of which, I want to go through the villains because the villains are so fucking cool.
I was
what
just
going to say, John?
We're on the same page, literally and metaphorically. But before we pivot over to the villains, which I absolutely love their name, which I'm pivoting to find it right now. I was just reading it and I already forgot.
Oh,
Thank
I
you.
wrote it down. It's the Agents of Primordial Dark.
Before we get to them, I just couldn't help but notice, and this kind of nobody else is going to know. Obviously, it's like a little Easter egg to what we were talking about before the pod. But I couldn't help but notice that there was a subsection of each one of these heroes, these knights, their villains on each of their origin stories had very Nazi-esque villainry amongst quite a few of them. And maybe not so Professor Audius Morpheus, but Kriegaz biting into someone wearing like a Nazi-esque thing, and then who else?
You can't, if you're going to create the most sinister villains, and comic books have always. That is a staple of the comic books industry. Yep. The comic book industry is built on the backs of having Nazi villains.
To this day, still.
Villains. Yeah. Because you need your heroes to vanquish the darkest of the dark and the most horrific of the villains, and it's hard to come up with something worse than that.
Well, what I appreciate...
right here. Right here. He's like ripping the fucking neck out of a Nazi and just fucking... That's crazy.
Technically, it's not a Nazi. It's a World War I German.
When you didn't have the Nazi position to fill, you kind of filled it with like an overarching, like with the gorilla, kind of has like a evil Catholic vibe to it. So there's always this like
satanic. Yeah.
Well, he's got that killer Pope hat, which is like, if I'm not wrong, Walt, that's from the awesome rock band Ghost. It's that very.
You know what? Ghost. I knew that people would think it came from Ghost, and which is very understandable, current. But I had drawn in the 80s for a band called Demonicy, an evil pope, and he had an evil pope hat. Just grabbing something from my past, and I was like, I knew. Yeah, I knew that. Like, people are gonna think it's like a Ghost reference, but you can't hide from it. It does look like a Ghost reference, but it really wasn't.
In our litany of nerdy references, we're like, well, not that nerdy of a reference.
It feels like everything was inspired by stuff from so long ago. Like almost nothing was inspired by a band as current as Ghost, though. Yeah, that's where
Speaking of which, Walt, I have so you said everything was sort of pulled from the past. What the fuck is up with the Plague Lord? What the fuck?
Yeah, no,
Where did that come from?
That was just a abundant, like pages and pages and pages of fucked up monsters. So finally hitting upon one that I was like, well, that looks really evil. But also I'm trying to make it look like it's something that could exist in 1970s Marvel or DC Comics. So it's not that crazy or it's not that disturbing, but yet also we don't have to worry about a code, so we can put him in like an S&M looking outfit. But basically it's Dr. Octopus though.
Yeah.
With those legs and tendrils. Yeah.
We had I have a little bit of a my own thing. Me and my friend Trav, who's been on the show, we worked together for years and years and years. And we had this like joke between us, this character that we came up with named Doc Cock. And we had like a little sticker that I made, that he and I made. And it was like the classic like Dr. Octopus look, but he had like little penises coming out from around him. And when I saw this character, I had to like stop for a second. I'm like, hold on. What the fuck? This is Doc Cock if he was into BDSM.
Doc Cock would be, most likely, right?
But we made this like little sticker, and it looked like action figure card with like the little like bubble of him and like detachable cockticles or whatever we called it. And it was like, instead of Toy Biz, it said Dick Biz, and it had like all these little things in there. But it was so funny to see the Plague Lord.
Yeah, he's kind of, I guess, just like a Lovecraftian design, sent through a Kirby.
If Kirby got kinky.
Yeah. And I was also pleased with the design because he has those, he doesn't have like feet, he has like almost like stumps. I loved is
like the cut off, because it was just like, fucking
no
why
hands,
not, man?
no feet.
He's fighting.
I would love to see an action figure of this.
Oh yeah, I would love to see all of those as made into action figures. Yeah, we just got to find a much bigger audience. So
just not the three of us.
For Kenner or Hasbro starts calling.
You sold a complete set to at least me. Hey, I look, I got the T-shirt on, guy. I got the Merlin pin. Give me more Knights merch. So what was let's see, Gorgilla, we kind of covered that one, but again, a great design. I thought it was like maybe a callback, Grodd maybe, but I love the fact that like there's a scene in the book where like he's obviously harvesting humans in like a meat factory.
The meat market. Oh yeah.
It was just like crazy. It was.
But yeah, I like that he was called. It was a Gorgilla, the simian. No, the satanic simian. What's that? What's that called when it's the same letter over and over?
With alliteration. I'll go to town on that.
Yeah, that was awesome from Casey. I love that.
Walt gave me a red ape with a club, and I'm like, all right. Crack my knuckles and go to work.
And we can't forget the dark cosmonaut, the Russian astronaut that got sucked into a black hole.
Isn't that's from the stations, right? Well, the CIA station's a weird like.
Yes, the audio that got leaked where they were up in space and they were burning up and everything. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, there's audio out there of Russian cosmonauts, and you can hear them
like
talking to the home base or to Earth as they're like, shit's going south. It's getting hot, and then all of a sudden the panic comes in as they realize that they're going to burn up.
I remember them saying that. Like, that's one of the only words you could hear them say audibly. It was hot. It's very hot.
And that was the one, I like that one. I felt is the one. I never was completely happy with that design. It's just kind of plain. Yeah. I know he had like a hammer and a sickle, but I never could like get a good visual twist on it, because otherwise it's just a bulky astronaut.
But again, I think he represented like the sci-fi section of like the comic book genre, right? Like that's. I think he worked perfectly with the Rogues Gallery. You know what I mean?
You also have you have the damned Yankee who sold his soul for his country, and then you need an evil Russian who there's no God, there's no nothing. It's only evil, just black darkness.
Yeah. By the way, I love the name Vanta Black. I love that you use that for the name. That's so clever. Like, it just describes exactly like what the villain is. He's just ultimate darkness. Because it's like named after the paint, right? That really, really dark paint.
Yeah, I saw it on Twitter or something. I was like, this is like one of those did you know accounts? And I was like, that sounds like someone's name. Like, that I was like, that's like someone's going to use that at some point. Somebody's going to take it.
Gotcha.
Might as well be you guys.
I still don't understand it.
It's the blackest paint that they've ever made in history. Man-made black paint that literally just absorbs everything around any kind of light. It's just the darkest anybody has ever made.
And is it available at like Home Depot and Sipperstein's?
No. This is something.
Dear Sherman-Williams, I'm calling.
Like, well, how much does a can cost?
I'm gonna look that up right now.
Well, knowing our government, it's probably $50 billion or something like that.
You can buy like some online. It says you can buy like a little 1 ounce canister for like $50.
Whoa, $50 an ounce?
Yeah, for like a 1 ounce, like little teeny tiny little bottle.
It's got to be because like they don't want you covering like your car in Vanta Black and then taking like a night drive or something like that.
Like if you painted your house or your rec room, what would it look that different than?
Well, someone would build a house on your own house because they couldn't see it.
Cars would be driving right through your house.
Look at this.
Constantly.
See, I can't visualize how that would work though.
Yeah.
You never find your way home. Like, where's my house? Where's my wife?
So like speaking of like colors and stuff, I did like this like week-long cartoon school like a year or two ago, and one of the things that they were talking about was color theory, and like they were showing examples of it, and I brought up Knights of the Fifth Dimension, and I was like showing them the Vanta Black. I'm like, Vanta Black is like their villain, and they're like, oh my god, I love it. And then I was showing them the transitions between real life and like the comic, and I was also like, here's what it, in the comic they're fighting the villains, but the heroes are losing. So like the comic, the colors are becoming saturated, and the inks are being pulled out. Then it's just like really rough pencils, and like people they ate it up. They loved it. The teacher really dug it. I ended up like sending them a hardcover of it they have like it's just like a full library for the college. It's just graphic novels, comics. Awesome. It's called the Schultz Library, and they have a copy of Knights of the Fifth.
Oh wow!
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
Tell my mom.
That's one of my.
Let's work on the Library of Congress next.
Yeah, I know, right? Let's do it.
Get on it, Gula.
I'll have to bring it over there.
Come on, Gula.
Down there.
Yeah, Gula goes down to Congress all the time.
Just leave it.
I'll just sneak it in. I'll just sit there and go in there and put it on the shelf and just walk away.
For your consideration, a little sticky note on the cover.
Yeah. One of the best things, I think, one of my favorite is just the pencil. I think on page 32.
Yeah.
and 30, maybe 30, 31, 33, and 34, I believe.
Yeah, with like the colors get sucked out of it and the ink and
Oh yeah.
it becomes like a really like that's one of my favorite sequences out of the entire book. It's
Yeah.
so fun to read.
It's incredibly meta. It's
So
awesome.
Casey, I know you did like the lettering and the typography for the book, but while reading it, I was like, did Walt like do like the speech bubbles and writing, or did you go in there and add that? Like how was the process done in that specific part, like the pencil pages, like the really
Walt
rough.
had done like for the sequence with Odious Amorphous,
Yeah.
where he shouts like that.
Yep.
That was all Walt. That was all on
Wow.
the pencils. That was all there.
Okay.
And then for the Kriegos stuff, I just approximated based on what Walt had drawn, and
Right.
just made my own sort of like rough hewn
Yeah.
bubbles, and then dropped them in, and kind of gave it that like patina.
Okay,
But it was
yeah,
totally like the art that came in there. It was drawn in, and that was the intention of like we're seeing you as the reader are watching a comic book page
yeah.
be stripped of
the
the
bones.
work to the bare bones.
I mean,
to
it's
go
the detail
to-
is fucking amazing because even like the word bubbles, they look like they were like waxed onto the paper. You know what I mean? Like they look like the old school lettering.
the intention was just like that's how you would look seeing it in the bullpen
So cool,
of like
man.
the letterer taping the actual hand drawn letters on top of the pencils.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a labor of love for everyone involved because I mean, it took so long to do, and from conception to completion, it was how many years? I don't remember.
Shit, like 6, 7.
Yeah,
it was a
It was a
while.
long time, and a lot of that was my fault. A lot of that was some other issues that happened, but when it was like when it was made, we're gonna finish it. I was like, I just wanted to be something I look back on, and I'm like, there was no shortcuts. Everything that I wanted to do, and how I wanted it to look, is there, regardless of if it finds an audience or not. At the end of the day, I am so proud of it, and I loved every moment of working on it with Casey. And I would want to give big shout out to Maxime, because I
Incredible
feel
work.
he made it look even like I'm trying to do Kirby. He definitely makes it feel way more the look that it needed to be. He absolutely elevated me trying to ape Kirby into something that looks like Kirby, but is still of its own look a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
And Wayne as well, who did yeoman's work. I mean, the amount of work that guy did, it's oh my God. I know he didn't have the passion that me and Casey had for it. That didn't matter, though.
We'd always check in with, that was the thing, checking in with them, because it was like Walt and I were like, we're gonna see this through.
Yeah.
We're gonna get to
We had the
end,
passion.
and it may take us a lifetime, but we'll get it. And then we're asking our friends that who we have worked with that are like super talented, and they're like, "So what's up, guys? Like, where's this at?" And we're like, "Listen, we're trying. Okay, here's the thing." And they're like, "Yeah, I don't need the here's the thing. Like, just let me know when you need me, and I will be there, and I will crush."
Wayne's work is phenomenal, and like I said, I can't say enough about all three men, and be so patient, with the long delays that happened with this, but boy, was it fulfilling when it was over. Like one of those things that the pride I take in that book is I can't even tell. Words can't put it into how much I look at that and look back on that project with such. It's there. It's like, and it's fucking how I wanted it to be, like to look.
You can't see the forest through the trees when you're there because you want it to be done. Like, because you're so passionate. Like, we were both so passionate. We're both like, yes, we want to do it, but like sometimes you can't squeeze it too hard. You can't like you just have to let it live and let it sit. And like I totally agree with Walt. Like every decision we made was the best decision. Some of them took longer than others, but like,
and I appreciate you being so patient, because I think a lot of people would have been like, I'm on to other things, bro. I can't do this anymore. I can't work on this. It's been how many years now? And there's things that, you guys know, in the book, we dedicated to Mark Costello, and he was so. When I asked him to, like, hey, I need you to model and take these photos so I could work off them, and he was so into it, and dressing art tables with garbage, because like with stuff that would be like me and him walk to the back streets of parking lots of Red Bank looking for like appropriate. Would this guy have this piece of garbage on his desk? He'd be like, no, but he'd have that, and we'd grab it. And we grab the garbage bag, and then we dress it in the stash, and then we take pictures of it with him at the desk. And then when he, passed away so suddenly, I didn't really want to finish it. I was just like, I can't get into it. How am I going to do it? How am I going to go back and do this now? And it took a long break from it to make me want to do it and finish it just to finish it, because I know he would want me to finish it, though. He wouldn't want me to abandon it.
That was something that I wanted to talk about too. Was like Mark's contribution to this book is undeniable. Kurt's entire look is Mark. You know what I mean? Like, I never got to meet Mark, unfortunately, but from his appearances on TSD and just you guys talking about him, he just seemed like the nicest dude.
He's the sweetest man you'd ever meet, and what a kind person. And the challenge to emotionally to go back and try to finish it, and then also like I don't have an angle of Mark from this. Like if I need it in this panel, like it was a challenge to try to like do it. And like, does it look like him? Does it look like him? Because I don't have any kind of reference of him in this position or whatever. So I did the best I could in hopes that it still look like him from like page 1 and chapter 1. Does it still look like the same character in issue 4? That's I was hoping it did, and did a good enough job where it didn't look too jarring of a like, hey, that doesn't look like the same guy.
Why does he have a mohawk?
One of my favorite panels in the book is like that big spread that like sprawls out, and like the backside of it is Kurt like being knighted as the new Spiral architect. Dude, Walt, I gotta tell you, Walt, when I read this for the first time like years ago, when I got the books from Blue Juice, when I read that scene in particular and I saw Kurt get knighted in that beautiful shot, it made me tear up. Like just to think about like, this is such a beautiful homage to a person. It makes sense for the character. Like it's such a rewarding part, because John and Nick, we're all fans of you, and we all listen to you guys. So it's just like knowing what it must have took to finish the book. That I think that one shot just it paid off right there. And specifically for this podcast, we sort of went through that, right? Pretty recently. We just lost a very dear friend of the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a challenge to kind of keep that going, you know what I mean? And,
and
a lot of it came, for me personally, it was just like, well, we got to keep doing it, because they don't want us, he wouldn't want us to stop it.
No.
He would want us to keep
I don't
going.
know.
So
his wife was like, no, you need to keep this going, because he loved it so much, and he loved me so much, and it was so hard because I was at the days after his funeral. Me and John did a pod, and sitting there going, Jesus Christ, I just buried my best friend, but you know what? The show must go on. It was the most difficult thing I could ever have done.
Yeah.
But now that I look back at it, the outpour of his family saying a thing, and he basically was the fourth wannabe. So shout out to Jeff, man. He
Shout out,
he was
Jeff.
a good dude, like Marco was. One of the best people you could ever know, and he just woke up one day and that was the end. So
Oh, jeez.
moral of that story is that never take life for granted and do everything possible that you want to do in this life, because you never know, the next day might be your last.
Yeah, that
I
is
mean,
true.
that's the crux of fucking Knights. Is like
That's the whole story.
creation in all its forms is sacred.
Yeah.
You don't have to make a comic. You don't have to make movies. You don't have to, like, if you're just putting something good forward, if you're just putting it forward, like, that's you're doing what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I just wanted to say, Walt, as fans, we appreciate that you finished this because it was beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I remember making the decision. I was like, okay, I'm going to finish it. And that probably, those pages that I had to finish, I think there was like almost all of chapter 4 and a little bit of chapter 3. That's probably the fastest I ever worked. I'm sure Casey's going, really? That's as fast as you can work? But it was like I was doing it and finishing pages so quickly that because I just was, and something just inspired me to be like, I gotta finish it. And it never was, I would come home from work and immediately work on it. And I couldn't wait to get home from work to work on it. And I don't know if I've ever had that kind of obsession before. But when the switch was flipped and I was like, I'm finishing it. It was kind of quick to finish it.
Well, and that's like the best part, like that ending, like getting it across the finish line. Like that's when all of that great visual stuff came through. Like
you
even
could see,
like,
we could see the finish line. Yeah,
you got it out of me, and like you were doing that work, and like that's how we got to that big weird scope. Like you guys were referencing the pull out. Like that was all. You got to give props to Tom Munn. Like Tom Munn and Walt were like we can do a pull out like you did in the 90s Marvel comics. Like I wrote an Onslaught X-Men comic.
I was gonna say it feels very much like Giant Size when you fold it out like that, and I'm really trying my hardest not to just regurgitate what Walt states at the beginning and then what Tom states at the end, but it really does feel like I'm reading something that was created by somebody or people who have been reading comics for 30 plus years and just want me to understand what that felt like. And especially with the difference between the universes, I think the first place that I ever saw something like that, I know I picked up a volume 1 of Marvel Zombies in high school, and with the way the Fantastic Four went between their universe and the zombie universe and the difference in the art, it just blew my mind. So when I saw that in Nights, it brought me back to that, like, this is what reading comics brought me back into. And then the color, like you said before, the colorfulness and the four color, like with the dots and usage like Kirby does, it makes me just so giddy inside because I feel like I'm tapping into something that I shouldn't be allowed to have access to. You know, like all this stuff is water damaged and smoke damaged in somebody's attic, but this book is pristine and it's in my hands. And it's like it's awesome.
I legitimately think, Walt, this is the best art I've ever seen you produce. Like, it is so, it hits every fucking note that you would want it to. And I say this as somebody who loves comics, who loves independent comics, who loves Jack Kirby, who loves Marvel DC. Like, this is everything. Everything that I wanted. It was like,
thank you, appreciate that. I appreciate
dude,
that.
Even like the Frank Miller stuff that you did, like oh my
yeah,
god!
we tried to throw everything in with the kitchen
and
sink.
The shot of when Kurt is finally the spiral architect, and he emerges, and he's like, oh, dude, I'm getting that fucking tattooed on me. That is my favorite page by far. Like,
you know, I thought about getting the tarot card of the spiral architect as a tattoo. I thought it was really
like everything about
sick.
that character, that moment. The backstory between Tell 'em Steve Dave and Walt, and like this is it. This is it. That's it. Like, I love it. So hats off to you, Walt. Hats off to you, Casey, for delivering an amazing story that I just love sharing it with people. Like, you got to read this fucking crazy book. Like, even if they've never heard of Tell 'em Steve Dave or anything, like, read this crazy fucking book. Like, this is amazing.
Real quick, my favorite thing in the image in this book, which I kept changing throughout flipping the pages, obviously, but it got to the very end. I couldn't help but to absolutely bust out laughing when I saw.
Are you pulled out the same
shocking,
thing as I am? Because I think it's
Is it the shocking truth about drugs?
No.
Oh, that Cree was doing heroin.
Oh yeah.
And they were trying to keep kids off.
It's that reference to Speedy.
Well,
isn't it?
what were those covers for?
It was
I
for
can't
issue
remember
2.
now. We did a
it
whole
was
bunch
like
of
the spinner rack.
Oh, it's the cover. Yes, all the fake covers. Yeah, that was fun.
Those are the best. Like,
yeah, that was really fun.
All those image, like, just like the one that stuck in my head. I don't think it ever got used. Maybe I was Cowbot.
What?
Oh yeah, the robot with
robot
the
cowboy with his face is off, and it's just like he's got a cowboy hat and a pistol up, and his face is rolling up, and it just Walt wrote Cowbot.
I don't think
that's
in
amazing.
there.
I love this. Like, I don't know how we can use. Like, I want to use. Like, I was like, I could write a whole 6 issues about Cowbot.
See, John, I thought when you were gonna pull out like something that made you laugh hysterically, this is the one that made me laugh. It's the full tarot card with fucking
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, dude!
Yes.
It's so funny.
Oh, it's perfect.
Yeah, I drew a full tarot card set on big paper.
Wow.
Those were drawn big and used on this tiny little panel in the chapter 1.
Yeah.
But I drew them all huge with cross hatching and
That's
everything.
fucking
And
wild, dude. That's like one of the things that I noticed about the book. Like you said, the tarot cards, little details, the packaging design, the background posters, like everything looked like it could. It's its own artwork sitting in a sketchbook somewhere. Like this book looked like it took 1,000 years to make.
it basically did.
Yeah.
Where's all that art now? Is it just like in your personal collection?
I have it. Yeah,
Wow.
I have it all in a portfolio binder, zipped up and under the bed somewhere
next to the Ark of the Covenant.
Those prints would make some crazy posters.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think that you'd have to. It's got to find an audience. Hopefully, it cracks.
Yeah, guy, what the
Not enough for you.
Manufactured posters.
I want them so bad. No, I.
Like I said, there's so much. No corners were cut though.
Dude.
There was like if we wanted a tarot card set, it wasn't like I was just gonna like do something real like quick and just bang it out. I was like, no, I'm gonna do a real tarot card set.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons why it took so long too. Is just like if I'm gonna do it, I was gonna I want it to look really good, even if it's the size of a postage stamp.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite images, and when we first were starting, because we got the opening into that double page spread with the knights and then Merlin was just when we were still trying to feel it out. You were just sketching all of these characters that could be possible knights, and one of my favorites of all time, I still have it saved, is the crustacean detective.
Yeah.
So it's just a crab with the little
with the bowler hat,
the bowler hat, and the little pipe. And I was just like, I know we're on the right track. I don't know where this is going to fit in, but he's a knight. He's a knight. They're all knights. We're gonna do it.
Yeah, and getting to that point of like having that throwaway little lobster man on a painting on the wall of a 2-page spread that means nothing. Those character designs probably were like 2 or 3 days, nights, just working and drawing and crumbling up. Oh, it doesn't look right. It doesn't look right. And then hitting on it, and you're like, oh, you know what? That's pretty interesting looking. That's one of the pictures on the wall.
I retract my statement about the talking animals. Apparently, there are talking animals in the Knights. They're just they are there.
He just had no lines. That's my fault. That's my fault. Not Walt. Don't blame Walt.
There's a frog. Come on, Justin. There's a frog in a canoe.
You're right. Wow. What's next for the Knights? Is there anything else?
Oh, I talked to Tom about it. You know, I was like, hey, if there was, I definitely wanted to do a sequel. Crazy though, because it took so long. But one day I could see it happening though, and revisiting Kurt and seeing what he's up to years later. I think it would be fun.
That reminds me. At the very end, I wanted to touch on this. The very last page. Your daughter did a little a little piece of art, and I just love that you put that in there, man. That's so it's great. It's so good.
Yeah. She was in high school. She's not in high school anymore, but she did that, and she brought it home. It was for her class project, and I was like, can you put some moons in that? If you can put some moons in that, I'll be able to use it as a piece of art in the comic. And over a weekend, she tried to cosmify this picture that she did for her art class.
That's so cool.
Dan, his moons and stars, always
That's
moons
so
and stars
sweet.
with Dad.
Yeah,
I even like the little username was just like her a little signature. You know what I mean? It was every decision, every little thing. Rest assured that none of it was just done willy-nilly. It was like, let's do this. Mm-hmm. Most people are never going to know what it was, but when I look back on it one day and look through it, I'll remember every decision and every little Easter egg. Yeah, I mean, this is like the 4th or 5th time I've read it, and every time I read it, I see something new, or I notice something. I'm like, oh, that, like in the double page spread of when we first meet the Knights, and they got like the comic pages flying around. I'm like, that's from issue 2. That's from issue 3. You know what I mean? Like, what the? How did they even get that there?
Oh my God! I just remembered another really cool detail. I didn't realize this. I finished it the first time, then I was like, I got to flip through it again. And then flipping through it, I noticed that when Mark goes, or not Kurt. Mark, I obviously want to call him Mark, but Kurt, when Kurt goes into the coffin for the first time, and he obviously goes to figure out what's going on, and then his last image is looking up, he's actually seeing his iteration of the Knights instead of the previous iteration. And I did not, obviously you don't put that together until you finish the book and then you go back. I thought that was such a really fucking cool detail.
Yeah,
it blew my mind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
People, if you are thinking like I was thinking before Justin sent me my copy through the mail, because obviously I don't know what's good for me, and I didn't take full advantage of what was available. If you're thinking what I was thinking, and this book just probably isn't available to me, and I just won't read it because I wasn't a Patreon subscriber at the time or whatever, you're dead wrong. You need to get this book. You need to live this goddamn experience, and then hopefully we can get some more out of this book, because the universe needs it.
Order enough that Tom Mum notices, and he's like, "Hey, let's do part 2."
I mean, shit, dude! I ordered like 5 copies.
You've done your part. You've done your part. You're Johnny Appleseed of the Knights.
He really is. He is.
I actually didn't open it until Justin told me that we were doing this, because I don't usually like to. I like to mint in box kind of guy. And I never open things that you send me. So, but Justin was like, "Let's do this, and you're gonna love it." And I opened it, and I definitely did. It took me back to my my childhood reading comics in that style, and just it I cannot say enough good things about this
Thank
book.
you.
Just it's just an amazing. It brings you back to your childhood.
That's what the whole agenda was. Yeah, like a love letter to an age of comics that doesn't exist anymore.
Now that Diamond is going bankrupt, maybe there'll be a reemergence.
I am so out of the comic book game since I don't work in a comic book store anymore. How has that, Casey? Yeah, what has that in the comic industry? Is that is that an earthquake or is that just a tremor?
Not really. Like, so much of it is now like boutique print on demand stuff. Like, even with the whole, oh my god, the tariffs. They're like, I get my comics printed in China or Canada. Like, so many other printers in America popped up, and they're just like small ball. Like, so much of it goes through like Kickstarter or Zoop or like. Yeah, like Diamond really was just like...
Well, the reemergence of the indie industry, I think that's what you needed in the comic book era at this point. It's just gotten too... Yeah, man. Diamond's just gotten too greedy of all that whole thing. And
the return of the underground comics is... I think it's right around the corner.
Yeah.
Well, I had read an article that without Diamond, though, being there for smaller companies... it's going to be tough for the smaller companies to exist because DC and Marvel will have a distributor. They always will. But who's going to fill that role for a company that only ships maybe 100 copies nationwide? Which Diamond filled that void.
It's true, but and then Diamond asked a lot of backlog. Like, there was a lot. Okay, you got to send me 5,000 copies, and you're like, oh fuck. I don't know if I can move 5,000 copies. Like, my mom can only buy 2. So I feel like it's going to go back to sort of like Carpetbagger. You go to the shops in your neighborhood and you got it you sell and just drop them off, ship them out, do it.
Okay.
It's more work. It's easy to be like, Diamond, do it for me. But Diamond doesn't really do anything for you other than put your ad in the book. And if it doesn't look cool, if it doesn't speak to whomever runs the shop, they're not going to order it.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Is that going to have a problem with the comic book? Do you think it's going to be harder for a comic book store to exist now that distribution center is kind of gonna go away?
But Walt said, Marvel goes through Penguin
big
publishing now. DC goes through. You're going to be able to get your Superman, Spider-Man comics, but it's was that really moving the needle on your brick and mortar business? Selling sadly, I love the comics I make, Civil 4 or Palooka. No, you're going to get you'll sell them if I walk in and I'm like, hey, do you want to do it on a consignment or we can do this? And they'll put them in the shop. But they're not going to take it out of just I don't know you yet. You're an unknown thing, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But it's the amount of work it would take for me to put a book in without the help of Tom Munn and other publishers who know the song and dance. There's a lot of bullshit you got to go through to have gotten your book in Diamond. And that doesn't mean you're going to get anything sold. They're just going
There's no guarantee,
you just hope. You just hope it looks cool enough as they go through. We've all seen previews.
Yeah.
It's thicker than the Bible and the fucking dictionary combined. That's a lot of information to take in. And Walt, you would know as the here.
And your independent comics only have a 1x1 little square. You have your cover, and if that cover it has to capture the person who's ordering's fancy enough to be hey, I'll take a chance on that. I'll order one.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's just the reality of independent comics.
$499.99 to go.
Yeah.
I like the reference. I like the reference beginning in the beginning of the book, $3.99 for a comic, and then at the end, I hope that you would have loved that the $7.99. You're gonna shit yourself on the $7.99. Who's buying an $8 comic book?
That's reality.
Yeah.
Though. Yeah. Marvel and DC are putting out $7.99 comic books.
Fucking
For
weird.
24 pages.
Not even an annual.
24 pages.
It's mostly ads, and I feel like a lot of the digital artists, I feel like they phone it in. I just feel like a lot of that small detail just gets muddy, and it's just something to read, bitch about online, and you buy the next fucking issue next month. You know what I mean? Knights of the Fifth Dimension, if anyone's listening, is something that you could. It's like a full meal. It's like eat it. It's not. It's
That
not a
fork
snack.
and knife out. Tuck that napkin into your shirt. You're all
Get
good.
that out, guys. You're good. You're going to CC's tonight, baby.
But before we close it out, we always do
Yeah.
a B fact, and I think we were just talking shit about phoning it in, but I think we're going to phone it in a little bit. But this week's B fact is it's a little known fact that every bee in every hive across the universe, they have a copy of Knights of the Fifth Dimension on their bookshelf. So if you want to be like the bees, you want to go get that book.
BlueJuiceComics.com.
Yes, thank you. BlueJuiceComics.com.
Casey, do you have anything that you want to plug? Where can we find you, Casey?
You can find me, Casey, Person America Comics is my website, Person America Comics on Instagram. Working on something cool that's going to be coming out this next year.
Ooh. Awesome, dude. I can't
Called
wait.
Woe to the Vanquished. So
Okay. All
if
right.
you go on the Instagram, you can check it out. It's Vikings and samurais and carnage.
Ooh.
I'm into
Um,
that.
But yeah, so
I like
some new
that.
stuff coming out. So
Awesome. Who's doing the art for that one?
it's a guy I found online. His name's Halal Meti. He's a German guy.
Cool.
It's very cool, very evocative of like Sean Phillips. Like it's
Okay.
yeah. I'm really excited about it.
Hell yeah, dude. I can't wait to read it.
Once I get the PDF letters, I'm sending it your way.
Guy, I'm buying 5 copies. I'm going to the Schultz Library, guy. I'm knocking on the door. Let me in. Walt. Everybody knows where to find Walt. But is there anything that you want to say? Anything you want to plug before we end the show?
No real plugs, but no, thank you for having me on. It was fun to talk about this. I could talk about this comic for hours.
Yeah.
It was that much of a personal favorite project of mine, and will always be. And thank you, for inviting Casey as well. I don't get to talk to him that often, so it was very fun to see him and hear from him.
I just didn't
awesome.
think it would be a party without Casey,
No, absolutely no. It was a massive part of it, and I want to thank him again for truly a person of merit. Only could put up with that kind of delays and just hanging for years, and that is a true testament to how wonderful of a human being he is, and I appreciated his patience that he will never know how much, because I'm so thankful he didn't just be like, he would have been well within it, he would have been justified to be like, yeah, I moved on, I'm done. So I appreciate that.
So I thank you, because I sent you very early works of mine, and for giving me the opportunity to write something which is so big and so awesome, and so I really felt like this was my Rocky training montage, was like doing this book, because I said yes, of course, and I went, I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna be able to pull this off, but I'll do some push-ups, pick up a log, run through the snow. I'm here for it. But no, so thank you guys for having me. Thank you guys for reading the book and telling people.
No, thank you guys. Thank you so much.
It's our honor. Definitely our honor to have you you two and to talk about the book.
Absolutely.
It's great. Thank you so much.
All right, be cool.
Shut the fuck up.
Buzz, motherfucker.
Thank you, fellas.